Hey there, I hope everyone is having a great day. I recently sat down with a friend of mine whose work impacts every homeowner, buyer, and investor in Montgomery County, whether you realize it or not. Julie Runyon is a registrar of deeds, and her office handles every recorded property document to include deeds, liens, easements, and protects the legal foundation of homeownership. We talked through some things every property owner should understand: what is title fraud and the title lock myth, ensuring deed accuracy, and how they are helping veterans in securing their DD 214s, and how our office is improving access to vital records. If you live in Clarksville, own a home, or plan to buy, this interview gives you the insight most people don't get until there's a problem. So let's jump into the conversation with Julie Runyon, Register of Deeds for Montgomery County, Tennessee. Well, thank you for doing this. I'm going to say that again.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, quick introduction: Julie Runyon, you're the Register of Deeds for Montgomery County, Tennessee. You've been in office since 2018, but you got elected again in 2022, correct?
Actually, I was elected for the first time in 2022. So this is my first term.
Okay.
Prior to that, as you know, I was a real estate attorney.
Uh-huh.
And so I practiced real estate for almost 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 22, Connie Gannay was retiring.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ran for office.
Excellent. And you are a UT Martin grad?
I am a UT
and
Martin.
a University of Memphis grad.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, excellent. Are you a Penny Hardaway fan?
Sure.
He's doing all right as a coach.
Yeah, I don't keep up with that as much as I should, but
oh man, I'm all about sports.
Well, my house is a very sports-oriented house, but that's more my son and my husband.
Excellent.
I like it, but I have lots of irons in the fire, as they say.
Excellent. So how about this? Can you explain in simple terms what your office does that impacts everyday homeowners or property owners?
Absolutely. So our office is the gatekeeper for all real property records.
Okay.
So we are responsible for making sure every document that's presented to our office at least meets the statutory requirements for recording and to become public record. So we review all the documents, and only those that meet the requirements can be recorded. So we're trying to at least keep those that don't meet the recording requirements out.
Mm-hmm.
The most valuable asset that most people will own is their real property.
Right.
So we want to protect the integrity of those records. So that is the most important function of this office.
Okay. You enjoy it?
I do.
Did you ever think you would be here doing this?
I did not.
You thought you'd be just a real estate attorney forever?
I did. But there comes a point in time where you feel like you want to serve.
Yeah.
And two, you need change
mm-hmm.
and a challenge. And I'd spoken with Connie a few years back and said, hey, when you get ready to retire, would you mind giving me a call? I think that this is a role that I can bring my experience, my knowledge, and expertise to, and really enjoy. So,
were you nervous about running?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, because you're a native of Clarksville, right?
I am. Both
and
brain.
So, I mean, everybody passes judgment on everything all the time. So I'm sure that's got to be kind of nerve-wracking.
It is. It is. We call it constantly campaigning at our house.
Okay.
It adds a little bit of difficulty,
mm-hmm.
But a good difficulty. I have the benefit and the luxury of getting out in the community and meeting people I didn't know. I get to talk about an office that I love and that is so important to Montgomery mm-hmm. County and to its citizens, and I get to play a role in that.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people understand how important the deed is until they have a problem with it.
That's right. We don't hear from a lot of people until there's a problem.
And then you're just constantly fixing.
To some degree. We are limited on what information we can give and what we can do. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to educate people on.
Okay.
Because as we just discussed, we're the gatekeeper for the records. So if it meets the statutory requirements, then by law, I can't refuse to record it.
Okay.
So there is no such thing as title lock. That's a big thing right now, and a lot of people ask about.
Over.
Right. So you can't lock your title. You can't say, unless I give you permission, you can't record a document with my name on it. You just simply can't. Mm-hmm. If a document comes in and it meets the recording requirements by law, if they pay the money, right, I have to take it. So really been trying to educate people that recordability does not mean legally sufficient.
Okay.
So that's a little difficult for me, given my background, because we get a lot of documents that I know are deficient legally in some way, but that's not a reason for me not to take it.
Okay.
Now, while we do attempt to make courtesy phone calls to help, there's that fine line between telling somebody how to prepare a document and giving legal advice.
Yeah.
But for example, on a notary acknowledgement,
Okay.
The law just requires an attempt. Legally sufficient would be signature, seal, expiration date. So if we get a document that's missing a seal, as long as we catch it, we'll make a courtesy call and ask them if they want to bring their seal or if they want the document back. Try to avoid work for them on the back end or a title issue. So we do a lot more than just say it meets the requirements. We do try to reach out and help, but we're limited in that. If we don't get a response or we're not met with, we're not met with a good reception as to telling somebody that they've omitted something, then by law, I still have to put that document of record.
And you also have the system you can sign up for, because I know I signed up for it, and anything that could be recorded with my name on it, I'll get an email or something that'll let me know something has changed, right?
Correct. So that has been our response to offset the title lock.
Okay.
Because again, as I mentioned, you can't lock your title. So with fraud becoming more and more prevalent, and let me preference that with, we have not seen a lot of fraud, thank goodness, in Montgomery County. You are starting to see more and more fraud in the larger counties, such as Shelby, Hamilton, Knox, Davidson. So one could say that it's only a matter of time before ours increases.
Do they have the same type of system in those counties, or?
They do. So the thing about that is fraud detection is really, really important before it gets to us.
Right.
So by the time the document gets to us, and I would say, if I were throwing out a number, 95%, maybe even 100% of the time, the fraud has already been committed before the document's presented for recording. So the fraud prevention is going to be more on the notary side, the title company, the title attorney, them doing their due diligence, which our local title companies and attorneys are great at. But if there's a invalid or fraudulent notary, we're not going to know that by looking at the document. If, we are not allowed to backtrack and research the document when it's presented. So if it looks no red flags on the face of the document, we have to record it. So the best service that we have found that we can offer people so they can act quickly and timely is the mylandalert.com, the fraud alert.
Right.
So that is a free program that we are able to offer Montgomery County citizens free of charge at this time. We hope to keep it that way. And you can go on, create an account. You can put in variations of your name, or for example, I didn't need 5 spots. So I went ahead and added my father, who's elderly and not keeping up with those things, added him. And then if a document's recorded, you will get an email and it will notify you there's been a document. Here's the instrument number. Please verify, or you may want to look into it. I'm really quick to tell people, if you have a very common name, or even if you don't and you get one, call us first. We can look it up. We can give you a copy, or come in. But people with a very common name, Joe Smith, or just throwing out names that, Smith or Brown or type, you might get an alert and it's not you. So always verify.
Yeah, I added my wife, both my kids, and my father-in-law, who moved to Tennessee a couple of years ago. And I was like, I'd rather just safe than sorry. My kids aren't homeowners yet, but you just never really know.
That's right. Fraud can happen to anyone. Again, I'm just trying to educate people, because the first question is, why did you record it? And then how do I get it off record? And once we record a document, the only way it can come off record is by a court order.
Really? Did not know that.
So another interesting fact about our office is everything that comes in a day has to be processed that day.
I've heard you say that numerous times. Y'all get through the whole day's work as it comes in.
And a lot of times I ask people, can you imagine? Like we all want to walk out, or some things that in my office I say, I'll do that first thing in the morning. It can wait. And there are, administrative tasks that can wait. But as far as documents that come in, Tennessee is a first in time, first in line state. Meaning whoever records first has priority as far as lien security, all the things. And so when we're presented a document, we have to record it. So if I'm presented 260 documents today, we have to timestamp them and date them today. And what our track record is and what our practice is we work those documents all the way through certification. And once that certification buttons hit, it means that is a public record and that you can rely upon it. And so we try to do all those steps in one day, but we do have to process every document the day it's received. Mail, e-files, all the stuff.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot. And some days it's like the real estate market. It varies. We might not have but 150 documents one day, and we could have up to 300 documents a day.
Does it change with the seasons, or like summer really busy like it is for us, or?
So all those transactions that you're handling ultimately get to us.
Well, I hope to send you more business.
Well, we'll look for it. So yes, traditionally with real estate, start picking up again in March, and then by summer, everybody's moving, relocating, all the transactions are happening. And then of course, when you start to hit the holidays,
so March to September time frame.
Yes. Now we still record in the other months. We still have a high volume depending on, for example, the interest rate went down or went up. And we're hoping for it to come down.
Right.
But when the interest rate went up, everybody's like, oh, I bet y'all have really slowed down and your workload's decreased. Well, the flip side of that is interest rates go up. And so people tend to stop making payments on either their home or one thing or another. So then in return, our foreclosure notices and substitution of trustees and foreclosure deeds and judgments go up. So we stay pretty steady. It's just we may have a higher volume during our busier times of the year.
So I'm going to ask you the AI question. Are y'all nervous about the rise of AI and fraud?
As far as the documents we receive?
The documents, the verification process, just a little bit of everything, because, you can make anything with AI right now, and it's only getting smarter, and there's only newer technologies coming out. So I guess what do you see as future steps to combat that, or do we just not know yet?
There's a lot of uncertainty and unknown factors that go into AI and the blockchain and all those types of things.
I was going to ask you about blockchain, but
there's lots of factors. I can see there being pros. I can see there being cons. Again, I go back to the statement I made about by the time fraud's committed, generally it's happened before it gets to us. That does not mean that I'm not trying to stay on top of the topic. For example, going to conferences, one of the hot topics in this past conference I went to was how can we combat fraud? And most of the conversation revolves around, for example, notaries, dual authentication, verification on notary logs, cameras. Most fraudsters don't want to have their picture taken and be on camera.
I've read a lot about fraudulent notaries, how somebody will just get it under a fake ID or and then they'll record something with a fake notary and then submit it.
So those are all things, again, if it looks legitimate on the face of the document,
you still have to do it.
Then I still have to do it. And we wouldn't necessarily know. We certainly would not intentionally record something that we knew was fraudulent without at least making calls to see if we had any way to avoid recording it. But just looking at the face of the document, most likely we're not going to know. At conference, we discussed different things that might come to light down the road. For example, cameras at the windows. when a document's presented, because again, most people committing a crime don't want to be on camera.
Right.
Would that be a deterrent? Maybe, maybe not. The flip side of that is we electronically file documents as well.
Right.
That's been one of the technology advancements over the past, say, 8 years. So if it's an electronic document, the e-file vendor is supposed to vet those people. For example, individuals are not supposed to have an account. You would have to be part of a company, a law firm, a title company, a bank, an entity that would regularly do business with our office.
Okay.
So there are steps. The Registrars Association just presented a bill that would codify those entities that can file through the vendor. So again, most your fraudulent transactions or e-files are going to come from somebody trying to create an account and then electronically file it.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
So we're not predominantly, we are heavily a military town. Retirees, people PCS and all the times. So what are some like deed-related challenges that military families may run into?
I wouldn't say they would have any challenges with
Nothing
respect
specific.
to their deeds.
Okay.
I know you had mentioned powers of attorneys.
Right.
The one thing that I'd like to get out there and that we talk about during our CLEs and my presentations.
I love your CLEs.
Well, thank you. I love doing them. And that a lot of people don't understand. Our system is not address-based. It is name-based. We can locate certain properties as long as we index them or they have the information on there to index them under subdivision and lot.
Right.
But as a general rule, there's not an address and you can't search by address. So we rely heavily upon names. So a lot of the military powers of attorneys, as you know, and you've seen so many of them, are handwritten.
Right.
And if it's like me, when I'm writing in a hurry, or for example, my teenager son, who has grown up using an iPad and typing all his assignments, you can't read it. So if I can't read that name in order to index it with 100% degree of accuracy, I should not take that. Because if I guess, then I'm either creating an alias potentially, or I've indexed it wrong, which would be the alias, and nobody will find it. So I've been at all these CLEs asking realtors, you get that POA because you know they're going to potentially use it. You have it in advance. If you can't read the name,
I can't read the name,
then please go back to them and have them fix it before you rely upon it and send it to me for recording.
And then once we get through this whole process, if it's recorded, now we have to have a court order to remove it.
Well, no, once I accept it, we'll make sure it's legible before I accept it. Okay. If we put something on that, for example, we didn't say, we thought we knew and it ended up being wrong. Okay. We can correct the indexing but we have to make a public comment saying on this date, this is what we changed. We have to leave the wrong way, which creates that alias. And then we can correct it to the right way. But that's not taking the document off record. That's just clarifying the record and the proper indexing. So, but if we can't read it, we're not supposed to take it.
Okay.
So
this next question is very, very important to me. I guess. National interest. There's a growing national interest in land ownership transparency, especially with foreign investment in U.S. property. Has there been an impact or something created, new requirements in the office? Because I'm on the State Governmental Affairs Committee, and we discussed this a couple of times for this past legislative session, and it was a very hot topic, and what we're seeing nationally and whatnot. And I know it's kind of politically charged. I'm just curious if that's something we're seeing in Montgomery County.
We have not had any mandates come down as far as verification as to foreign entities for recording purposes, et cetera. I know that in the legislature this past session, they discussed different maybe safeguards or requirements, but they would fall more on the title companies or title attorneys to verify prior to closing the transaction. As far as transparency, all of our records are public except for the DD-214s, the military
Right.
DD-214s. All of them are publicly accessible, whether that's the online subscription or we have public computer systems here available for the public to come in and look at whatever they want to between 7:30 and 4:30 Monday through Friday.
Okay.
So our records are very accessible. I do think that opening it up further might lend itself to the fraudsters. Might make, they're public, we want everybody to access them, but you've got to keep in mind the public records statute is designed for Tennessee residents.
Right.
So the more you open them up, you've got people in other countries having access to the deeds and being able to have that information, and potentially, not saying they would, there's lots of legitimate people, but you have them having that information that would aid potentially in creating a fraudulent document or posing as a seller. So I think that's a fine line. We want them to be public, we want them to be accessible, but we also want to protect the integrity of future documents.
Okay.
So, and back to the DD-214s, if I can say this, we'd like to encourage all of our veterans to record their DD-214s. That's
Record it where?
Record it with us.
Really?
Record it with us. It is free of charge.
I should bring my DD-214 with you?
It allows for you to have another place for it. It is our only non-public document that we have. There's no charge. By statute, there's no charge to record that for the veterans. There is a statute that we're working on potentially updating just to protect who can get it. But right now it is limited who can come in and request it. It would have to be the veteran, the spouse of the veteran, present ID. There's 3 or 4 other people that can get it.
Everything is on that.
Yes. So you cannot pull it up. If you see it, it'll show a discharge. But if you click on it, for example, on the online service or on the public access computers, it will not show a document. And then before we can release it, we have to have the form completed acknowledging you're one of the people by statute that can get it, and then have your ID and keep that on file.
Interesting. Had no idea about that.
I would like to start promoting that more. But again, as we just discussed, I took office in 2022. And while that seems like, oh, that's been 2.5 years ago, it's been a lot in the works in 2.5 years. So that will be on the agenda to maybe we can partner with Veteran Services or Fort Campbell. And
you talked to Montgomery County Veterans Coalition?
I have not, because again, we've been working on building the team and other projects, but those are all on my list to do. We would like to service our veterans in that way, because as you know, if you don't have it and you can't locate it, you have resources, but this might be the quickest and easiest.
It's really difficult if you lose, your member copies. That was the one thing they preached over and over. Don't lose these, don't lose these. So mine, in my safe at home, I literally have it listed as member copy 1, original member copy, 1 copy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just because just the way they pushed it, I was like, well, knowing what I know about the military, having to get another copy of this, I don't think I want to go through that.
And that's why it's so important for people to know that you can record it here.
Okay.
And again, doesn't cost you anything, and that it's not public to the community or anybody accessing our records.
Okay. Excellent. Every time I sit and chat with you, I learn new things.
Well, good.
We've got
lots to share.
Most definitely. So, okay. There's what was the one that I had? Heirs property can create complex title issues that hinder property transactions and development. What resources and support does your office provide to help families resolve these challenges and secure clear ownership?
Okay, that one's a little bit tough for me because of my background.
Okay.
So again, we cannot give legal advice. We can record affidavits of heirship, and that's generally when you're speaking about heir property.
Right.
If there's not been a probate or something of that nature, that's generally the document we see filed. But again, if it meets the recording requirements, we can't verify any information contained in that document.
Okay.
So that's the best mechanism that we have, is just recording the documents that they present. The flip side of that is, who's signing them, who's preparing them. There's lots of intestate succession and all those good things, all those types of laws. So We can provide current copies of the deeds
Okay.
for them if they need those, but that's a little bit more, again, on the legal side.
Okay.
Yep.
So are y'all able to, help resolve disputes of like easements and whatnot, or is that strictly, title or and whatnot?
Well, it all falls back on the deeds.
Right.
So if someone comes in and they want to research their property, we can aid them in showing them how the system works. But the deeds and the property records are going to be vital to resolving any of those type disputes. So we help them in being able to provide those records and make them accessible to them. But ultimately, those type things are going to fall on surveys, litigation as far as a boundary dispute litigation, or survey to determine if there's a boundary dispute, easements, all those type things. Again, we can help them try to find the deed that might contain the easement or the actual easement, but we can't tell them, yes, they have a boundary dispute and help them resolve it, or yes or no, you for sure don't or do have an easement. All we can do is allow them access to our records. And part of that too, I think that might roll into another question, is the importance of the deeds and all those things. And what can you tell a property owner with respect to that? Someone looking to purchase property, get a title search, know what's on the property before you buy it. We have a lot of people that come in, and whether they did or didn't. I know what my practice was when I was practicing as far as notifying people of easements or restrictions and those type things. I'd like to say that I think most people do, but as well as I do, when you're sitting at that closing table, you're just kind of,
signing,
yes, okay, yes, it's got restrictions. Somebody mentioned that, yes.
Keeping everybody happy.
Yes, and so I'd say with that, knowing what you're buying.
Okay.
And then that's how our records come into play with that. If most people are getting, a loan, for example, and whoever's closing the loan will do a title search, ask questions, ask, is there an easement? Ask, are there restrictions? All of those things. And that's where our records come in, because they contain all those.
Okay. So what do you wish everybody in Montgomery County knew? If you could just give one shout out to what they need to know about your office and for their deed, what would you tell them? For their deed or about our office? Let's do both.
Okay.
We'll do deed first.
Okay. The most frequent question I get is probably, or maybe not a question, just inquiry, is I never got my deed, or I've paid off my home and I need my deed.
Okay.
So we really try to educate people that, generally speaking, you get your title when you purchase the property. It's whole different animal than a vehicle title. Whereas you have to wait till you pay the lien off and then you get your title released. So in most cases, when you purchase the property, you receive title. Now it may be encumbered by a lien, deed of trust, or something of that nature, but you get your title. So while, at any point in time after you close, if you need a copy of the deed, we're glad to provide that. And we're glad when you come in to get that deed, when you pay it off, we're glad to celebrate your success, because that's not, that's a huge, huge accomplishment.
Is it common
for people to pay off their lien?
Well, I mean, is that something that happens like, weekly?
I would say most definitely.
Really?
Yes.
That's awesome to hear.
It is. It is. Kind of a side note, and you can cut this out, but if you want to. But so we had a lady come in, and she was so excited to get her deed. And, we were excited for her because she'd paid off her home. And so we handed her a copy of it, and she just said, "This is it." Back when I started practicing, you got this, it was like on the linen paper, and you had the fancy cover on it. So I thought, what can we do to make them feel a little more special, or to make it at least seem like it's
a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Right.
So we had document envelopes. They're not linen, but they're stationary envelopes made, and we put the people that come in and say, "I paid off my home," and it makes them feel a little more special.
That's cool. I mean, you're doing something.
Yeah. I mean, it's not much. I mean, but it's still, their excitement, and you can imagine, I hand you a piece of paper and they're like, "That's it?"
Yeah.
Like, So again, it
It's
makes
like
them feel.
when we pay our annual taxes, I'd love to get a thank you. Like, can I get an email say I appreciate you doing the right thing?
That's a little bit different. How many people are on the tax roll? I'll defend Kim's office on that. How many people are on the tax roll? That would probably be, it beats the nasty gram you get when you don't pay your taxes.
Definitely.
But yeah, I would say that for people to know that you get your deed. If you don't have a copy of it, then reach out to us at any time and we'll provide that to you. Again, it goes back to you locked them in your safe box, your safety deposit box. And you thought that if you lost it, it was a big deal. Know that it's of record. And if you ever need a copy, we can provide it. We can even certify it depending on the need for it. And also if you don't receive it from closing or whatnot, or there's a delay and you need it quickly, for example, of connecting utilities or verifying ownership for school, you can, again, reach out to us and we can provide it because all of our work's done the same day. So we can get it to you pretty quickly.
Excellent. So I didn't put this on your question sheet on purpose.
There's always one.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, what's the next 5 years look like?
The next 5 years looks like me still being a register of deeds, carrying this office to the next level, whether that's technology, training a team that wants to serve Montgomery County and do a good job, which we already are doing, but we always have room to grow. Everybody does. But next 5 years, see myself being register of deeds and having some of these projects completed, such as working with the veterans and publicizing the DD 214 service and coming up with new projects.
So give me one or two personal, like you going on a cool trip, you and your husband sneaking away, getting the kids off to college and out of the house.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I have one graduating on Monday.
That's amazing.
Going off to college.
Where are they going?
He's going to Villanova.
Really?
So in case you hadn't heard, the Pope's an undergrad from went to Villanova undergrad. So it's been a little not comical, but a little lighthearted in my house because, as my husband would say, Villanova 1, Notre Dame 0. And then my son, being the typical teenagers, is like, well, if you don't have the Pope, then, So yes, so we're seeing one off to college. That's our first. So I see most of my vacations being in Philadelphia, going to visit. I have a freshman who will be a sophomore. So no, we're just in the thick of all that and trying to enjoy it. Hopefully a big vacation at some point, but.
Where would you go if you could go?
Oh my, where would I go?
Money's not the object.
Oh, okay.
Oh, come on.
Bora.
Really?
Yeah, it takes forever to get there, right? So they say that you've got to go for a while. And I'm sure I've never priced it because, again, I've not had that amount of time on my hands because I think it takes like 2 days or something to get there.
Something like that. Yeah.
I think that would be beautiful. I think Italy would be beautiful.
I've told my wife for years that if we ever go to Fiji, I may not come back.
Yeah, that would be on my list too.
Because it's like a 14-hour flight plus a half a day ride and whatnot.
Well, I highly recommend New Zealand.
I have not been there. I've been to Australia.
It's beautiful. Probably similar to Australia. I've not been to Australia.
I went there with the military, so it really wasn't as fun. We jumped out of an airplane and did some maneuvers and got back on an airplane.
Okay. Well, my husband, Ray, was a foreign exchange student in New Zealand his senior year. So he spent 6 months going to school and living with his host family there. So as they got elderly or getting elderly, he had said, I want to go back and I want to see them and them to see my kids and meet my kids before they get any older. So in 2019, right before the shutdown, we went to New Zealand, and that's about a 24-hour flight. You actually lose a day, gain a day. That's really weird. Yeah. But we did it over Christmas break, and it was fantastic. It's absolutely beautiful.
That's awesome.
So
Bora Bora. Why not?
Why not? I like tropical. My husband says he wants a beach trip so bad where he can just sit right now. And the hardest decision he has to make is what book he's going to read.
Right. And there's no connectivity.
there's that.
We're going on a trip next month and no connectivity. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, where are you going?
We are going to British Virgin Islands.
Okay.
And instead of doing a cruise, we're taking a catamaran that we've rented with 2 other couples. And it comes with a captain and a chef.
That's amazing.
And we're just going to float and go see some stuff. And we had to send a couple things we wanted to see, what we like for food, are we early risers, late, so I'm looking forward to it.
So just out of curiosity, because
Sure.
that was my, I won't say midlife crisis trip, but we went to BVI the August before I took office in September. Is Soggy Dollar on your list?
I don't know.
If it's not, it should be if you're near it. It's just it's
possibly. The wives have generated all this.
okay.
All the husbands are just we're along for the ride.
Well, just ask. So
I can probably look it up on the email because we had to fill something out.
Yeah.
And so
it's just one of those things to check off your box, so to speak. But it's just on the beach, and I mean, it's a hangout. But they even have Soggy Dollar Radio that my husband listened to before we went, and he still will listen to it now and reminisce. But this is getting way, and you're going to say this is only supposed to be X amount of time. But like our first Christmas, he gave me a book, 1,000 Places You Must Go Before You Die. And so that's kind of how we plan our vacations. Soggy Dollar's in there. It's for British Virgin Islands.
Okay. I'll have to look it up.
So,
well, thank you so much for doing this. I really do appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you asking me. Like I said, I love talking about the office. What we do, people don't realize what a vital role we. So the trustee's office, Kim's, Wiggins' office, and Aaron Hester, the assessor's office, we call ourselves the trifecta.
Oh, I know. I hear it from everybody.
Because it starts here. We say that we're the registrar's office is the birth records. Then you go to Aaron's office for the checkup and to be assessed. And then you go to Kimberly's office to pay for it all. So they can't do what they do without us doing what we do. And if we're not doing it right, then the whole circle's messed up. And of course, if Kimberly's not doing what she's doing, we have no money to run the county. So we pride ourselves on calling ourselves the trifecta.
That's
and I'm blessed to have worked with a lot of good people that have been role models and are a wealth of information. So yes, in 5 years, I really want to keep doing what I'm doing and just do more.
That's excellent. Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you. That was fun.